Question number 3 in the name of Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan.
My question relates to the Magdalen Laundries and the issue of determining the length of stay and the difficulties that are arising with that.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy O'Sullivan. This is about the scheme that has been put in place by the government for women who were in the Magdalen Laundries. I'd like to bring the House up to date and say that 80% decisions have been made on 80% of the applications so far. There's 770 applications that have been received, and 442 applicants have received their lump sum payment to date at a cost of 16 million. So 16 million has been spent from the sum that was allocated, I think it's 34 million, by the government. The majority of the applications have been processed to the satisfaction of applicants. There's been no systemic issue or problem, particularly relating to determining the length of stay. That is not to say that it's straightforward in every case. There are less than 4% of the applicants have disputed the assessment to date, so these cases are relatively rare. And Justice Quirk, recommended a fair and robust process that should be put in place. And where there are records available from the relevant religious congregations and the applicant has no issue with them, it's been very straightforward. Where there's incomplete or no record, or where the applicants disagree with the records, we are checking out as much as we can what the applicant is saying and trying to come to a satisfactory conclusion. We've also advised the applicants to get legal advice, and in the vast majority of cases, I can say to you, before people have signed the agreement, they have got legal advice, and a sum of €550 has been made available to the women. Plus VAT towards the cost of obtaining legal advice. So the vast majority of claimants, it is being dealt with, and I assume that you're commenting on those ones where there are particular difficulties, and there is an appeals mechanism, as you know, as well, to the Ombudsman and to a senior official in the first instance.
Thank you. Deputy O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Minister. And first, I suppose I want to acknowledge the progress that has been made since the exchange we had in July, because at that stage it was 357 had received a compensation, and that's now gone up to 482. There are outstanding issues, and one of them is the need for reputable independent advocates for those women who are in nursing homes or in other institutions. And there's also the issue of the end date, because Justice Quirk had recommended that there wouldn't be an end date, because we do know for various reasons that some people missed on the Residential Institutes Redress Board. But there are that number of women who are finding it difficult to prove length of stay. Now, I think the McAleese report showed that the date of exit was not available for some 58% of admissions to the laundries. But the burden of proof seems to be on the women, many of whom are in ill health and of advancing years. So it's not the fault of the women that the records are incomplete. Justice for Magdalen did raise the issue of the dangers in exclusive reliance on the religious orders' records. And Judge Quirk was told that the department had 6 different ways of establishing length of stay. So I'm asking, can you verify that all of those avenues are being explored? And also the question, will the department accept sworn affidavits from the ladies or from other women who were there at the same time who would make a sworn affidavit?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I do want to say to you that in the first instance, the process starts, the processing of all applications starts on the premise that the testimony of the applicant is correct. That is the basic approach, and then we try to seek to verify it. I take your point that it isn't the women's fault if the records are incomplete, and there are a variety of other mechanisms that are being used, and I can confirm to you that if the applicant disagrees with the officials, a number of inquiries are being made. So they're being made with the Department of Social Protection, which, for example, may indicate various social insurance records from a particular institution, the Department of Education, obviously school records, electoral registers. So there's a whole variety of other documents that are being looked at in order to make a determination. I will certainly look at the issue of the sworn affidavit and whether there is a possibility in some of the disputed cases of using that, and I'll come back to you on that.
Thank you. Deputy.
I just would stress the urgency, because many of the ladies are of advancing years and some of them are in extreme ill health. And I had the privilege of meeting one of the ladies who lives outside the state this week, and it was most disturbing to listen to her story of when she was in one of the laundries. And I've absolutely no doubt that the the ill health that she suffers now is contributed to by the fact that she spent, as she said herself, that she was dumped in a laundry at age 14, and that was her word. So onto the healthcare issue, and I know that the government agreed that your department would coordinate legislation with the Department of Health, and that your officials are working with health officials. So I'm just wondering where that is at this stage, and also the issue of healthcare for those who live outside the state, outside this particular state. I know women living in England would be easier to perhaps deal with, but there are women who are living in other areas, including the United States and Australia, and what input your department has had into that particular issue.
Thank you.
Well, we've been having detailed discussions with the Department of Health about finalising the legislation, particularly that issue of access to health services for women who are living in the United States, for example. And we will have a mechanism to deal with that. It's likely to be through the buying of an insurance premium for the women, but the final details of that have been worked out with the Department of Health. The legislation is almost complete. I'm just awaiting some final decisions from the Department of Health. I expect to have those very shortly, and that the legislation should be coming into the Dáil within a matter of weeks.